Are women priests valid? That's the topic of today's episode of the Naylor Review podcast. I'll be discussing these ontological arguments against women's ordination. And these arguments say that it's not that women should not be ordained as priests and consecrated as bishops, but that they cannot. That there is an ontological barrier against women being priests. That it does not matter if a bishop lays his hands, if a valid bishop lays his hands on a woman and conducts the rite of ordination. It does not matter. Nothing happens. Nothing metaphysically happens to the woman. And this argument is different from simply being against female ordination. I personally am against female ordination because of the words of St. Paul clearly going against it. But I am very much against the claim that women priests are invalid, and this ontological argument against women priests, which basically says that if you receive bread and wine which have undergone the rite of consecration, or words of institution and so on and so forth in the Mass, celebrated by a woman priest, then that Eucharist is not actually a Eucharist. It isn't a valid Eucharist. And women bishops can't validly ordain priests, even male priests. But this isn't the argument that St. Paul uses in Holy Scripture. St. Paul simply says that he will not allow women priests. And I always think of it as, if you say the ontological argument, that it's not that women should not be priests, but that women cannot be priests, that's a much easier argument than saying that women should not be priests. And I think that if that argument was actually true, St. Paul would have used the not should not but cannot argument. And I do, so I think it's an unbiblical argument against women priests. And I actually disagree with women priesthood anyway, but it's an unbiblical argument against female ordination. And I also think it's very dangerous for the Church, because I think it means that for anyone who even doubts female ordination, if they subscribe to that argument that women cannot be priests, then there's so many parishes, especially in the contemporary Church of England, that are just not going to be considered. And so and not going to be considered, and there's no biblical reason not to consider them. There is no biblical reason. So I think that it's a very sad view, because it means that people won't respect women priests as being valid women priests. And yes, I do respect them as priests. I do think, and I have received the Holy Eucharist once from a woman priest, a few weeks ago actually, and so I do see their ordination as valid. I think their ordination is wrong. I think that their ordination is illicit, but I think that it's as valid as my male priest's ordination. And I think that Archbishop Sarah is a valid archbishop who can validly ordain priests. So, those are my thoughts on the ontological arguments against female ordination. If you liked this episode of the Naylor Review podcast, please subscribe and like this episode. Thank you.